It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Well, hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality. I am Megan Bonner, and joining me, as always, is my lovely and talented co-host and the resident professional.
Oh, howdy.
Christy Powell.
Hello, and thank you for that warm welcome.
You are very welcome.
It's nice. It's nice.
And,
who's this asshole?
This asshole over here is rejoining us once again, and this would be the president of the
Esteemed
ACA.
president.
Esteemed president of the ACA.
When he's in the room.
Mr. James Boone, a.k.a. Jamie.
Thank you for that honest welcome, I suppose.
Okay.
Wouldn't want it to be too warm. No, thank you guys for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be on.
We love it when you come onto the show.
Oh, insert cum joke here.
That is specifically why I said come onto the show.
You know, I believe we established a principle last time you were here about the level of entendre, that it needed to be double or higher.
Shit.
No single entendres.
All right.
That's right. We got to
true.
get our quippiness up
double.
a level.
Minimum level.
Yeah,
double.
this is a quality show, all right?
Right.
Okay? Our cum jokes have to have at least 2 levels of abstraction.
Okay. Yeah. I could. Yep. I
Multiple layers of cum.
I mean.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for watching.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, and I'm continuing to violate your double entendre.
more especially.
Flaunting the standard.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to all of you wonderful people who have joined us tonight as we, I guess, decide how many layers of separation we need between us and our sex jokes.
No layers.
No, okay, that's okay.
None.
So
We
that's
just have to
not
just
why
keep 'em
we're
going.
here. Okay,
No.
so why are we here this week,
So
guys?
the reason we are here this week is we will be talking to Mr. James Boone, the president of the ACA, about 2018 in review and coming forward in 2019 for the ACA. Ha, come and joke again. So, but
You earned that one.
first-
She earned it.
I did.
she
Thank
did.
you. But first, on the community corkboard is the Shelley Siegel concert, our live show and concert next week. That is a week from today. Get your tickets now. I will say anyone who does have the ability to attend the concert, call in today. First 3 calls who can feasibly make it to the concert, and you will get 2 free tickets. So, woo!
Boom.
But
Damn, I wish
If-
I was watching so I could call in. And
I know,
take advantage
right?
Of this incredible offer.
But just in case you need some info on how to get your tickets, Mark, could you roll the thing?
Make this Valentine's Day one to remember. It's time to get sexy. Live in Austin, Texas, an intimate performance by recording artist Shelley Siegel follows a live taping of Secular Sexuality. Food is included and drinks will be available for purchase. Get your tickets now by going to eventbrite.com and search for Secular Sexuality. That's eventbrite.com, search Secular Sexuality.
To be safe.
So, again, first 3 callers who can feasibly make it to the show, you get free tickets. And it should be a blast.
Yeah.
We're really looking forward to it. With that, let's see here. AA Con is this year.
Yep.
It's every year, really. But this year, it will be in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we will be there Easter weekend. So see us there. It'll be fun. It's always fun. And lastly, the February ACA magazine is released, and it is promised to be wonderful as always. Check it out. If you are not signed up for it, sign up now.
Yeah, that's coming out this weekend. If you're not already registered, go ahead and get ready for that. So you'll get this coming edition, which has our column, the Secular Sexuality
does.
column. Serafina Smith wrote a beautiful piece about love and crushes and how to know the difference and, where they are at. So, hope everybody will check it out.
That sounds awesome. I am definitely going to read it. I intentionally did not read what she submitted so that.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
I could- yeah.
Yeah, it's nice in that glossy spread.
It is. It's wonderful. Also, the digital copy is just as great. So,
Yeah.
that being said, Mr. Boone,
Yes.
can you tell us about, since your inauguration in June of 2018, what has been happening now that we are in a new year? Can you give us kind of a year or semi-fiscal year in review of 2018?
Well, I can give you a year in review of 2018.
I say fiscal because of when you were inaugurated. Yeah.
Well, there's that. But I mean, things happened in the first part of 2018 as well.
Okay.
It's just that we've made most of our changes in the last half of this year.
Okay.
So as far as the year in review, what's happened and where the ACA is going from there, which is what your audience will be interested to hear, is there's been a big sort of growing impetus for more community events and for more projects like this one in the ACA, growing in fits and starts for a while, and the last sort of 6 months we've really kicked it off. So actually,
Yes, we have.
2018 is just slightly more than 6 months ago. It's the first time the ACA sort of did something big and out of its regular wheelhouse. And we went to American Atheist National Convention 2018, where, among other people, we were lucky to meet and recruit some fantastic volunteers.
He gestures this way because that's actually where we met.
It's Megan, yeah. So, like you just said, we're going back again in 2019. But basically, we've started looking at the sort of little things that the ACA likes to, has had a notion of wanting to do for a long time, right? The ACA has always had an annual bat cruise, and we, added on to it this year. We added
Last
year, I should say. We added an event beforehand and going to Esther's afterwards, and we're basically going to continue doing that. So, as far as 2019 is concerned, expect all the same sort of events going to American Atheist National Convention. Definitely Bat Week is going to be bigger. We've always had a presence at Pride, Austin Pride Fest. That's going to get a lot bigger and more ostentatious and more fabulous in a fantastic way. And I mean, last year we went from, it depends on how you count number of shows, to 9. Regardless of how you count, we doubled the number of shows. So don't expect 18 shows by the end of 2019. But
I don't need that kind of competition.
Yeah,
I'm showing up every week doing my best.
You were showing up every week and doing an excellent job.
Well, thank you.
Sir. You guys actually run the tightest ship in the marina. But I'm a host or co-host of other shows as well, and you guys blow us out of the water. As
Go
far
ahead
as
and
how,
plug.
Yeah,
we'll take it. We'll take it.
The one of the hosts of the nonprofits and a co-host of Talk Even.
Okay.
Yeah,
Both excellent shows, I might add.
Thank you. Yes.
I have been known to guest on nonprofits myself.
Yes. Yeah. And have we had you on nonprofits?
He was on
You
once.
did,
Yeah.
yeah. And I hate to derail what you're saying, but I got to tell you, we did that segment, and then it went out on the interwebs and kind of got lost in the ether, and I forgot about it a little bit. Then a few months go by, and I see this segment pull up on my YouTube. And I was like, oh, what was this? I kind of forgot about that conversation. And it was you asking me about my deconversion story. I go ahead and I post that on Facebook. And didn't get a lot of likes, didn't get a lot of comments. That's fine. I wasn't really expecting my family and friends to, watch this like 25-minute long monologue about me. But what I also wasn't expecting was to later get like a text message from my best friend in high school, a text message from my ex-wife, a text message from my sister, a text message from my mom, from my dad, from my stepdad. All of these people who like watched it, and then
like, you what now?
yeah, it provided me an opportunity to, I guess, come out in a more active way than I felt like I really had before. Because, I, for a number of years at that point, had been open and honest about who I was, but I hadn't necessarily sat down with every individual person. I hadn't had the talk. And I think a lot of folks out here in the atheist community know the talk that I'm referring to.
Yes.
Of where you really hit people with that, so, Mom, Dad, remember that imaginary sky friend we used to all sacrifice to?
Not really sacrificing anymore.
So it was that was a crazy experience for me.
Yeah.
So thank you for facilitating that, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I'm always happy to oblige by asking revealing questions, I suppose. But
back to what we accomplished in 2018.
What has been accomplished in 2018. So basically on all metrics, things are going gangbusters here. Membership is up, all these sort of internal measurements are up. But I think the most important thing that we're really doubling down on establishing is the sort of sense of community. Not just online, but locally as well, right? Or I should say not just locally, but online as well, because you would...
Around the world.
Around the world, yeah. And it's... I can be an optimist and I can be a dreamer, but I didn't think it was going to go off this well, this quickly. And
something to remember.
Yeah, it is something to remember. All right, whatever. It's been very promising, and I think don't expect something hyper dramatic to change. We're not going to start believing in God and do more of this, but expect more of the same.
Awesome. Do we have any plans for any specific to-dos for 2019 yet?
I mean,
or would you like me to take that?
Do you mean other than like Bat Week and Pride and other things? I mean,
and this like live concert that we're putting on, all of these exciting things. I got to say, just centering around the newsletter. I mean, in contributing for that, I have found myself speaking to people from all over the world.
Yep.
We're doing
across the pond and further.
Yeah, and doing a Discord interview Q&A coming up, and just in setting all of these things up, I'm realizing just how broad. I mean, just the number of platforms. I mean, we're on the YouTube, we're on the Facebooks. Throw into
where
that.
Where else can we be?
We're not just on the YouTube and on the Facebooks. We are prominent on platforms as well.
Yeah, and then throw in Discord on top of the newsletter, and of course the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud and Stitcher and Spotify and everywhere fine podcasts are podcasted. But just the number of places that the Atheist Community of Austin is reaching out to the world writ large is really a remarkable thing to be a part of.
Yeah, and we're glad you're a part of it as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
And we're glad that you are as well. And if you would like to support that progress, should I plug your Patreon?
Yeah, I was going to say,
go right ahead.
specifically this Patreon, not some other Patreon.
All right. Well,
I was literally about to. Go ahead.
If the words nonprofits come out of his mouth.
He needs to do it then.
Okay. I need to do it and not do non-profit? Okay, because I'm used to saying either non-profits or talk heathen to me.
Okay.
But I should say patreon.com/secular sexuality.
Okay, he got it out. I was really nervous that was going to get some violence.
Yeah, there was no violence, although I did also say the places you could go to support the ACA through my shows. To be clear, the money all goes to the ACA
goes to the same bucket
to produce these things. It is just a way of sort of a little bit voting for your favorite show.
Yeah, I don't appreciate the opportunity for him to brag about these things.
So you can also reach us if you have questions, comments, suggestions, concerns at sex@atheist-community.org.
The only email address that you need to worry about.
None of the others that you have previously
None of the others
before.
matter. Yeah. I mean, we support all of the other shows. They're great. They're wonderful. They're fine. But
And I see that actually in our chat, they're putting up the Patreon link as well. So if you want to go over there and just click that link, that'd be awesome. I would like to also suggest that if you have any questions for us, please give us a call at 512-686-0279. That is 512-686-0279. You can hear our sultry voices in your ears directly and hear us speak your name. So, do you have... Do you have a problem with that there, Jamie?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good. I'm
You're
trying to help out as my guest co-host and see the chat pop by. But
okay. So
it's like a million little clicks over here.
I
Trying to
will
go
say
quickly.
that we currently have about only a quarter of our current live viewership have liked or subscribed
Ooh.
to our channel. So please hit that like and subscribe buttons. It
Use
really
your finger,
helps.
make them happy.
Why
And
have
it
we
makes
never
me
come
so
to that?
happy.
Yeah,
It
that's
does.
I was gonna
such
say,
a much better
I know
idea.
I broke the double entendre limit here, but yes.
You did, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Whose side are you on?
You know,
I
on
think
whatever
she's on the
side that makes
show's
me feel
side.
better.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, yeah, we
with that,
do
we
have
do
some
have a couple
lines open,
callers,
and we'd
yeah.
love to hear from you. But yeah, let's jump on the phones. We got a few folks calling in.
We do. Do you want to do the honors?
Oh my goodness.
I know.
I
this
never
is
get
the
to
first
do
time.
this.
Yes, that is the button.
Hello, Alex. You are on the air.
Hi, guys. How's it going tonight?
Hey, great. How are
Good.
you?
Splendiferous.
Oh, I'm good. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, we're here.
That was just the awkward silence after Jamie tried to tell a joke. It's a sound we're
just-
very familiar with around
I'm
here,
just
but
doing me.
I understand how it seems like a technical difficulty to everybody else.
I know my life is a joke to you.
So I'm going to stop making
Alex.
fun of Jamie long enough, Alex, to ask you what's going on tonight and what's on your mind. What can we help you with?
All right. So, one of the things that I've kind of grown up around, and, you know, I suppose it could be worse if I weren't living in New England, but, you know, like, and this, I'm a really awkward person. And one of the things is, as I've gotten older, and I mean, I'm college age now, but, a lot of guys, especially my age, really like hanging out with each other to talk about their feelings towards women, and, you know, it usually takes on a sexual nature, and then it eventually gets into, you know, like degrading people and valuing just for, you know, like how a person feels sexually about them. And, you know, it really puts me off to, you know, wanting to socialize, because I don't know, you know, is this normal for people to be doing this? Is there a way to feel attraction for a group of people without disrespecting them, or without seeing them as, you know, something besides, you know, human beings with their own opinions and thoughts? And, you know, they don't know how to respond if I say, you know, like, these are, you know, they're people, and, you know, I don't like to think about them like that, and, you know, it's making me uncomfortable. I mean, is that, I don't know if it's the way everything goes with them, and if it's just something that's a product of them hanging out with other people they want to hear that sort of thing.
Well, Alex, I would say right off the bat, just knowing this much about you in the 45 seconds we've been speaking, I already know that you're more qualified to be president than other potential applicants. So it's great to hear somebody push back against quote unquote locker room talk culture, or, you know, however we want to frame it. But I hear where you're coming from. There's this awkwardness, this burden of wanting to be a good person, and yet, you know, wanting to be around other people, not wanting to constantly be a scold, not wanting to constantly nag people by saying, hey, come on, did you have to say that? You know?
Like, and also be, you know, are you sure that was proper? I think that was kind of improper. Do you maybe want to tone it down a bit? That can definitely be an awkward position to be in, even if you are right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to counter with things like, I wonder how that person feels about dogs, or I wonder what kind of plants that person is growing in their house.
Humanize.
Things that you'd be. And I don't know if it's am I looking at this from a fair vantage point where like if I felt attraction for any group of people, like. I don't know if I
would you be right there with them? Is what you kind of doubt about yourself?
I don't know.
Wait, are you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's there.
So, do you mean? Let me kind of parse this out and kind of reframe this. So, you're wondering if instead of being a woman in a group of young men who are all talking in certain ways about the opposite sex, if you were a woman in a group of women with a guy standing there and you were all talking about guys you might be interested in, if that guy would feel uncomfortable?
I'm wondering more if I were attracted to women and hanging out with other people who are attracted to women, would my response to people saying, I want to do this and that because that person's so hot, would my response be the same as it is being somebody who is not interested in sex or a relationship?
From a female perspective, I would have to say if it makes you uncomfortable, it makes you uncomfortable. There is a certain level, I think, that is maybe to be expected because we all do have attractions to other people. But if it makes you uncomfortable, then that group needs to know they're crossing a line with you.
And it sounds like, from what you're describing, this isn't just a line with you, but this is really objectifying human persons, and I get it, a group of guys in particular standing there, a beautiful woman walks by, so hot, want to touch the high, people start saying shitty things, and then we make jokes about it, and then Adam Sandler makes $1 billion, and we just accept this as part of our culture.
Other like, okay.
Hey, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are Billy Madison references not in play?
No, not
Okay.
that. You stopped yourself right before saying, want to touch the...
Heiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know the reference, so I just thought you were
that was
going
just
to
being
do
a weirdo.
and you went, I'll do an accent, and then you thought, oh no, this accent is too off-putting.
But
and
anyway, to answer the
no,
question,
the point is just I fully recognize that there is this very common, I think, experience of being around a group of guys that just sort of assume that all the guys around them, that all the people around them are totally on board with this kind of behavior.
to talk about
grabbing pussies, to talk about, treating women like objects. And it is just sort of assumed and expected that when we're around our people, that this is somehow acceptable. And it isn't. Yeah. But that challenge of being the person to speak up, that challenge of being the one who objects and then being ostracized, that's a very real struggle for a lot of folks. And I recognize that.
So
I will... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So Alex, if there's a part of your question that I think might be what you're wondering about that we're not addressing, or maybe I'm imagining this, because what it sounds like you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you are not sexually attracted to women and are wondering whether you would be inclined to behave the same way these men are if you were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
it's kind of, do I have the right to say you guys are being disgusting if I'm not? If it would be one thing if I felt that way and were restraining myself, but I don't feel that way in the first place. So do I have the right to say that's a bad thing to do?
So I can take this, I think. The answer is yes. So, we'll put it this way. If you were attracted to women, you would behave this way. Even if that was something that we could confirm, which we can't. Even if that was something that we could confirm, you would still be in the right now to say that's not something that should be done. The knowledge that hey, I might understand why a person behaves this way or why a person thinks of women as sex objects, even to a little degree,
Does not objectively make that right.
Yeah, it has zero effect on whether or not the action is correct. However, it does provide you the opportunity to understand, what is causing the negative symptoms, basically. This negative behavior we can think of as symptoms. Understanding the disease doesn't mean the symptoms have to be accepted. It actually provides you the opportunity to formulate a better treatment, almost. Because if you can understand, well, this person is talking this way about women not because they've thought about it objectively or not because they even think negatively about women. They're letting, these hormones or, hormonal thinking patterns run away with them. And if I have the opportunity to remind them, hey, your mom is a girl too, you still want to say stuff about all women, then in a joking friend way, that might be a better way of figuring out how to respond to it. But what I would say is the kind of questioning and understanding that you are applying to yourself in this, of like, well, how would I act if I felt the way they felt, tells me that you're an incredibly patient, caring, kind, and empathetic person, or at least have those tendencies. That you're like, well, these people are saying these, misogynist things, but maybe I don't understand them fully. Kind of tells me that you have a level of patience that is going to be helpful if you're trying to help people that are misogynistic. It's a tool to use,
but
patience, but it has to be addressed.
Further to your question, though, I can tell you as someone who is attracted to both genders and other genders that, what was that? Oh, sorry, he's raising the roof.
Raising the roof a little bit.
There was a motion, sorry, Alex, out of the corner of my eye that...
Didn't mean to distract you. Sorry, Alex.
So I would have to say that no, I would not be objectifying them in the same way. I would still say, nice body, or, nice ass. But it wouldn't go, objectifying wouldn't go further usually than that. It would be, oh, I wonder if they have a nice personality. Or, wow, I wonder if they're a bitch. Which is kind of a whole separate issue, but it goes more into what their personality is like and who they are as a person, rather than continuing to objectify further. I don't know if that helps you at all, but I would say the type of objectification that I have heard and experienced from males toward females is definitely far and beyond what I would consider to be acceptable most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, catcalling is a real thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
It sounds a lot like an extension of some toxic masculinity that kind of lingers in society.
Yeah, and especially when you get into groupthink, you want to sound, cool to your bros.
Yeah. I totally have sex all of the time. I have all of the kinds of sex, and
all the
I'm so good at the much of the sexness.
Like every day, my birthday, all of the sex.
Yeah.
Right, or the frustrating ones, people saying, oh, you should get a dog to get the attention of women so that you can, it's like...
That's some crap. Yeah, that's some game playing shit.
Yeah. Try getting a personality. Maybe you'll hook some more women.
I think to distill all of this down a little bit, I think that whether you are gay, straight, male, female, whether you're pansexual, non-binary, if you're a human being and you're witnessing other human beings, particularly a group, particularly of your friends, of people who are looking to you and constantly trying to check in to see if their behavior is appropriate, is okay, is right, then you do have a little bit of an obligation to stand up against shitty behavior. And that obligation can go all the way from, standing up to a totalitarian regime and getting run over by a tank to patting your friend on the back and saying, hey, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
So there are gradients to these things. And, I don't want to come up with a single idea of how to always operate.
Right.
Whether you should always call out every single thing that anybody ever says that is even slightly politically
Past
off
the
base.
pale.
Yeah. But I do think that there is some responsibility on behalf of all people to stand up for other people.
I agree. I think part of the thing that makes it most difficult is that the most important thing is judgment, right? Like what you're talking about is how harshly to respond and to all these things. And then also, particularly if you know the person well and okay, if I, approach them one way or another way, this is the way that's most likely to, help them understand that they're talking about other human beings in a way that's not cool, bro. Then use that way, whatever that way
I try to
be.
give some people.
Yeah.
I try to give some people the benefit of the doubt with this. There are some things where, I'll oftentimes I won't say something necessarily sexist or anything gross like that, but I will sometimes, say something that's kind of hurtful or offensive, not realizing that I said something hurtful or offensive or why it's hurtful and offensive. And sometimes I try to say, okay, that person said that and, it wasn't so off the charts, disgusting or misogynistic that I'd say, oh, you definitely should know that that's not a good thing to say. I want to see, sometimes people say something that they shouldn't say, but I give them, you probably didn't realize how it sounded or that's a problematic thing to say. And, I try to draw a line there because from one hand, I understand, oh, I shouldn't say this because that hurts people's feelings. Now I know I'm not going to go do it again. And okay, this is something that you would reasonably expect somebody who's gotten to the point they are in life to know already, and yet they're still coming across saying this sort of thing.
Right. And I think it's also maybe an idea to, rather than calling them out in front of their bros, which would be a whole nother issue, waiting until later and just being like, hey, when you've got them, pull them aside, or when you have them alone, be like, hey, so remember that thing you said? Yeah, not cool. Not cool. And maybe you want to think next time before saying something like that. That way they don't have to, get defensive in front of their friends. It's a one-on-one because, like you said, maybe they said it without thinking and it's not something they have thought about before. And if you plant that seed, then maybe they'll start kind of, policing themselves on their own thought patterns and their own what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that you do change minds when people don't feel defensive, and there's a lot of value in that. I also think that, particularly when we're talking about these very obvious microaggressions, when somebody says like, man, let's not go to that taco joint, that place is so gay, or man, my boss is being fucking retarded right now. Those are the kinds of things where I feel very comfortable jumping in right away and just
like,
saying,
hey.
we don't have to have a whole goddamn convention about it, but please don't do that. That's shitty behavior. I'm not okay with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe pick a different word out of the entire vocabulary to use.
If you want to criticize something, just go to the YouTube comments. There are plenty of great words available to you. But, you just want to filter out the ones that are, the ones that are targeting a particular minority or making somebody who's already disenfranchised feel like they're even more on the edge of society.
I hope that helped kind of answer the initial question.
Yes. Yeah, it's helping kind of, I want to understand why people have some of the, dialogues they have. And, I want to, in one way, be included in social circles, but at the same time not be with crowds that are, kind of going against what I feel is right or what I feel
And feel
is
it kind of repulsive.
I'd rather be around people who, everybody feels comfortable around because they're not, talking, in a, rapey tone, or they're not, thinking only of, doing X, Y, and Z to somebody. They're, thinking of, how do I bond with this person and learn from them on an intellectual level? That's the way I like to interact with people. And I, prefer, and, like some of these people I just encounter, in, work settings, as far as, if I'm closing a shift at a food place, it's not all of the people that I'm necessarily collaborating on like research projects with, but still, I'm trying to, I want to be friendlier with people, but I also want to get a sense for who I should be, sticking around and who I should be avoiding. It's just, it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, being human.
It is. Yeah, it is difficult. It's difficult to navigate those social circles, especially as a minority, as a woman. I speak from experience.
Yep.
Well, it's always a challenge to stand up to people, whether they're close friends or whether they're just a total stranger at the grocery store. But we would encourage you to kindly, gently, but responsibly do that. And it sounds like, at the very least, your head's in the right place.
Yes.
And so we definitely appreciate that and wish you the best. I know that it can be a real challenge in a lot of ways.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to me and taking my call.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you giving us a
fun.
call, and you have a great night.
All right. Thank you. You too.
I hope I didn't come across as... There's a part of me that's worried that I came across apologetic on behalf of misogynistic crap.
No.
Okay.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I mean, at the very
Just
least,
being
we can set
self-conscious,
the
yeah.
record straight here. I do
Jamie
propose
Boone,
that.
not a misogynist.
I'm Jamie Boone, and I approve this message.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, just that it's a very human thing to create in-groups and out-groups. One of the best ways to be with the in-group is to hate on the out-group. I mean,
those
see
guys,
also
am I right?
all religions, So there is very much this thing where the language that we use, the way we see outsiders, it serves to bond us together, and that can be an incredibly dangerous thing. We are going to be talking about this in much greater detail in the future. But yeah, we were having Hector Garcia, who I know has been on a number of other fine ACA shows, who's going to come and speak with us, particularly about his book, Alpha God, as we look more in detail at this. But there's just a very common human experience of wanting to say, this is us, and that over there is them. And whether them is the, attractive
Whatever
jogger.
difference.
Yeah, whatever the difference is, whether it's a disability or whether it's their, secondary sexual characteristics or whatever else it might be, there's something about wanting to form communities around hating others, or if not hating in a violent,
Visceral.
outright kind of way. There's something hateful about, referring to a woman as a pair of legs or a piece of ass. And it's such
DNA,
a
baby.
common, it's such a common experience. And I don't mean to sit here and decry the trials and tribulations of the straight white male in America in 2019. I will say that it is often challenging to speak up in those circumstances, to be in that locker room. And it's one thing absolutely to actively participate in it versus to sit back. But it's a whole other thing entirely to stand up against it. And
It's
that's the
groupthink
thing that
mob
we're called
mentality.
to. Yeah, absolutely. It is challenging to stand against the stream, but I think it's also an obligation. I think it's the only morally responsible choice in many, many circumstances.
So, with that, did you want to continue on to our next segment we had prepared, or did you want to take one more call?
Well, I think we do still have a few folks on the line and a couple of lines open as well. So I would say, let's jump to the phones.
Do people that call in get anything special this week in particular for calling in, like couple free tickets to a thing?
This week,
This
in
feels like a
fact-
very leading question, Jamie.
Yeah.
That's a little bit the intention.
So this
Getting a
week,
little bit higher.
this week, in fact, you can receive 2 free tickets for the concert/live show featuring Shelley Siegel and us.
Us wonderful people.
Yes. If you are able to attend, you will receive 2 free tickets to the show. If you call in, if you are one of the next 3 people who can receive tickets to call in. So please do. That's 512-686-0279, 512-686-0279. Also, you can go to the Atheist Experience website and click on the Call to Show button, and that will also get you directly into us if you are overseas. That should be free, I understand it. Jamie, the Call to Show button is free if you are overseas, yes?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. With that, yes, we just got confirmation. Thank you, Mark. Our guys in the back make all of this happen, and everyone just give a quiet round of applause to them because they are what make the show run.
For the audio-only format, that's going to be
Yeah.
real awkward setting.
I got in there for a reason. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and take Peter. He's calling back from last week. He wants to talk about abortion. Peter, you are on the air.
Oh, boy.
G'day.
Hi.
How you doing?
Wanted to continue the conversation from last week?
Yeah, I did. Before I say anything else, I just want to say thanks to you guys. It's cool to catch you on a day that you're talking about how the ACA is doing. Because last year I deconverted, and the Atheist Experience was like a massive part of that journey and everything. Thank you. So I just want to say you guys are doing really helpful things. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, in a previous life, I would say that we're doing the Lord's work, but that feels very challenging and contradictory
The
now.
Dark Lord.
Yeah,
We are
I
doing
guess so.
humanist work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the devil's advocate. Cool. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of thinking since our last discussion a week ago about abortion. And it's great to just like open my mind up a bit. So I just wanted to tell you guys sort of like what I've come to, and then see
I'm
if
very
you guys
curious
can
what you
poke
came down
holes in it.
to. I know for everybody else, we kind of, you called in and we're just sort of like, abortion.
Here's
What
our
do?
opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all, honestly, 3 of us gave you 3 very different models of understanding and ways to look at it. So
But I think generally all came to the same conclusion, just with 3 different models.
I mean, I think our rationales were fairly different. And I don't mean to mince words or parse it all out, but I would say that clearly, yes, we are all 3 pro-choice, and very firmly so, but for very different reasons. And so I'm curious, Peter, where you've landed and how that is sitting with you after some thought.
Yeah, cool. So I'll preface this by saying that none of this is like a legal argument, like we should restrict abortions and all that.
Sure.
I haven't gone into that, but more just like on the ethical side of things. Yeah, so I guess the way I thought about it is if personhood is factored into your argument, so, like when does the fetus become a person or something like that, that's a big deal for a lot of people. This line of reasoning sort of applies to that. So I'd say first off that the fetus is obviously human DNA and is alive, like the cells are alive and everything like that. If you talk about when it becomes a person, if you use any non-biological characteristics, like maybe the viability of its success outside of the womb or its ability to reason or communicate with other people, something like that, I think you struggle to define a point in time when the baby becomes a person because all of those are sort of like on a spectrum. It might be more viable or less viable or that sort of stuff. If you look at, say, biological characteristics like a heartbeat or maybe its brain has started to develop or it has all of its limbs, if you use those to signify personhood, you're sort of it seems a little arbitrary to me. It's just like, oh yeah, we'll just pick that, and then that will be our marker for if it's a person. But I think if you pick one, you have to justify why that marker is better than all of the other ones, that it's the most accurate, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so because you're looking at them arbitrarily, you can't really know for certain if you're picking the right marker for when a person becomes a person. So I guess my thoughts are, wouldn't it be ethical to err on the side of caution? So like...
Yeah, I hear that. And I don't mean to cut to the chase overly much, but I think what you're describing is sort of what we call the sled defense, right? That a fetus, a zygote, the unborn writ large, differ from human beings as we know them, differ from people who have been born because of their size, because of their
Development.
Their level of development, because of their environment. They live inside of the womb rather than outside of the womb, and because of their degree of dependency. And so, you take that argument and you say, well, a fetus is completely parasitic and dependent on the mother, but then how is a 2-year-old not dependent on other people? How is somebody who's geriatric not dependent on another person?
Yeah.
So you can take all of these things and say, somebody who's short is not less valuable than somebody who's tall, so size shouldn't matter. That our level of experience and our
Cognitive ability.
and our cognitive ability, our level of development, that shouldn't matter because somebody who is, suffering from a low IQ or in other ways is not developmentally on track is still of the same value as a normal person. So all of these things still matter. And that's sort of the framework that you're coming from. And I hear all of that. And when you're trying to look for when does personhood start and is there in any of these different metrics a specific moment? Is it, the third trimester? Is it at any of these different points? And I would say that, no, you're totally right. If we're looking for a binary argument where you say this is the distinction between personhood, this is the moment where you become a person, this is the moment where you cannot be aborted, then you're right.
A yes or no of personhood.
There is no solid metric. Everything we say is going to be arbitrary. But life is about a series of arbitrary distinctions.
It's not a...
a little bit of discernment, I think, is really relevant. I don't think that there is a black and white answer or response at any point. And I do think that there is levels and degrees of responsibility that come into all of these things, and they all are sort of working together. I know this all feels very murky and arbitrary, but
it kind of is.
Yeah, am I making any sense to you?
To me,
that
yes.
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's tends not to be the way that I think about abortion, but yes.
When I think about abortion, I do take all of those into consideration, and I try to be as objective as I can as far as taking into consideration the opinions and viewpoints of other people where they believe life starts, where what we might call life starts. But honestly, when it comes down to it, when I look at it, I look at the, as I still call it, the host for the fetus, which,
The host.
Yes, the host.
Okay.
Until that fetus is viable on its own, can breathe its own air, can consume its own food, until it can live more than, a moment outside of the womb, then it is that I call dependent on the host, the mother, is, if it can't live more than, 5 minutes outside of the womb, then it's not viable. So when I say, whether it can survive on its own or not, I don't mean can it eat on its own, can it or, I don't mean, can it go forage for its own food? Can it go hunt its own meat? I mean, can it breathe on its own? Can it function on its own for even, an hour?
So the guiding principle for you is whether or not it is ostensibly able to exist independent of this specific person?
Yes.
Okay.
That is generally my criteria for that line being crossed. Yeah.
So wait.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So when a fetus can live independently of its host, as you say, is when it's not, at that point it would not be acceptable to perform an abortion?
To terminate?
Yeah.
I would say that if the world were different, and here we're getting into post-birth facts.
Yeah.
If the world were different and there was a place for that child, if there was a guaranteed loving home for that child, then that's one thing. But we know that we have a very, very fucked up world.
Yeah, you can't guarantee it.
You can't guarantee that at all. And is that, then looking down the road, is that potential child's life going to be any better or worse for it having been born?
And there's a distinction that we made last week in discussing this with Peter, and something that I think is worth bringing up again, which is to perhaps differentiate abortion in the sense of terminating a pregnancy for the sake of not having a child versus a emergency situation where you're doing a triage where
For
you're
the sake
trying
of
to
the mother.
Yeah, you're looking at the possibility of either both dying or either dying and trying to suss that out. That's a very different circumstance to me.
Well, I think that something that's worthwhile to say, just to clarify for a broader audience, because I think it's something that goes unthought and unsaid most times, is if technology develops to the point where
Peter actually brought this up last week.
Oh, okay. Oh, probably.
Yeah.
That where at 3 months you can say, a host can choose to no longer host their fetus, but the fetus can be put into a test tube and grown to full maturity, that at that point, taking action that would end, what you would call the life of that fetus would not be ethical if you could then just have it born elsewhere.
Through some artificial means.
Through some
no
artificial
longer
means,
a burden on the body or a burden on the mother or whatever.
It's the 1 week early abortion, right? Of like, oh, well, the baby's about to be born, but they're going to stab it 5 minutes before, which is, of course, a lot of the fear-mongering in New York. Whereas in reality, what actually happens is, no, they just induce pregnancy and those sorts of things. It's worth reminding, because this is going out on the internet where anyone and everyone
Can see and hear.
From 4chan can see and hear it, that it's not, when do you have the right to kill something? It's like, okay, well, when do you have the right to eject something from your body?
Which is, I go back to host model.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, there isn't really a limit on that.
And you're not even a woman?
Nope.
Wow.
More woman than you can handle. I don't know.
Sorry, he just did a very, very snazzy little,
That was a little bit of...
little click.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we helping at all with your questions here, Peter?
Yeah, we may be going back and forth.
That's right. I think it's really interesting because, like you said before, Christy, there's so many different perspectives on it. It's pretty hard to navigate all of that. I think, going back to, I know you sort of jumped ahead, but I just want to fill in a few gaps possibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that I think, as an example, say you were out in the woods at night practicing shooting your rifle or something, right? And then in your scope you see something that looks a bit like a human and a bit like a bush, but you're not sure which one it is. Would it be unethical to take that shot because you're potentially going to harm a human? So in that case, relating it to the abortion, we're not sure whether or not this fetus is a person if we're just defining it arbitrarily. And there's a risk that we could actually get it wrong.
Yeah, and I
would
think...
just say...
So you're looking at the err on the side of caution argument?
Yeah. So if you take it back all the way to conception, that's like the only, as far as I can tell, the only place that isn't an arbitrary
It's definitive
definement of when it starts. Yeah.
Sure, and
I mean,
I think
go
that's a
back to,
good point. And that's why we're talking about ethics rather than laws, which are very rigid, whereas our ethics are meant to include a degree of discernment.
And situational
awareness. And there is, when you're talking about, if I take this pop shot at what could be a human or could be a bush, my question is, why are you shooting that gun? Right? So what is the driving force that is like forcing you to be out there? Is it because you are in a war zone and you are potentially being attacked from all sides and you're, very anxious? Or is it because you're hanging out on the back 40 and having a couple of beers and just want to be, taking target practice? If you're taking target practice and there's no imminent danger and you're just sort of willy-nilly in a risky situation shooting your gun off, then yeah, that's completely irresponsible and amoral. By that same token, if we're talking about abortion, if we're talking about the potential possibility of ending a life, of ending a human life, that does need to be a thoughtfully considered conversation. That does need to be something that people are really looking at. It doesn't need to be something that's just casually done. And like you're describing, there is not a definitive moment, and that's okay because we're adults having these conversations. We're thoughtful people thoughtfully considering these things. And so I do think it's very relevant to use some level of insight and discernment rather than trying to look for a magic dividing line.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm really tempted to say something like, actually, I think you can just kill them all at the end of your thought out.
I mean, whatever
thing.
You need to say.
All the
if
babies.
That's where you land.
No, that's not where I land. To be clear, I meant all the babies. But
doesn't really make it any better there, Jamie.
I know.
So, kill them all. No,
kill
wait. You took me out of context. What I meant to say was kill all the babies.
Yes.
That somehow does not help.
Well, no. So mostly the point that I wanted to make, Peter, is that you seem to be arguing about at what point in time a fetus
becomes a human,
should be considered a human being. And I would say that, to me, that's much less of a distinction because you still have the same, you have a moral question, you have an ethical question that still has to be addressed, even if you were to say, at 1 month, this fetus is a human. Okay, cool. Does that mean that the bodily autonomy of the mother is then sacrificed and that they're locked in?
Yeah, and that's like the next stage, I guess, that I wanted to get to. I saw on the Atheist Experience, they put up a clip of Tracy talking about abortion. And she was saying, the baby...
Life begins conception.
Yeah. Don't kill innocent people, but maybe the baby's not innocent because it's using the mother's body without her consent. If she doesn't want it to be there, then it's not. That might have been a misrepresentation, but that's sort of what I got from it.
That's... So I know Tracy well enough to know that she wasn't saying, well, the baby is guilty and therefore deserving of murdering if the...
that's a bit of black and white, but...
Well, yeah, but I can tell you what my position is, which I don't think is actually that radically different than Tracy's. As far as its summary, I can say that I haven't thought this out as much as, I probably should have, but that's true for most moral quandaries, which is my position is actually a person's bodily autonomy doesn't change. Considerations about their bodily autonomy don't change based on whether or not that person has had sex or whether or not someone else needs a part of their body from the inside or from the outside. If someone needs your specific kidneys to live, and if you don't, open up your skin and let them have a kidney, they will die. They still have to ask your permission for your kidneys, and you can still say no. Regardless of how close to death they are or how close to life they are or how old they are, whether they're 10 years old or negative 5 months old, they still have to ask, and you can still say no.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, I don't know, I feel like the quote-unquote contract you enter into when you, say, have sex and you run the risk of getting pregnant, because even we all know that contraception isn't 100% effective, So when you have sex, I would say that you're saying, yeah, it's a possible thing that I could get pregnant. Well, not me, but my wife, and then we could end up having to take care of a baby. And I think that entering into that quote-unquote contract should mean that maybe you're not allowed to just go back on that and say, actually, I've changed my mind. I don't think that I want this baby in me anymore. It's like, well, maybe that's too bad because you've already agreed to it and another life is now depending on you,
I have serious issues with that, but I think this is. This is, would you be willing, Peter, to call back again, not next week because we'll be live next week, but the following week with continuing this conversation?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy for you guys to shred me to pieces. I don't mind.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And
Yeah.
I think more than anything, the valuable thing here is recognizing that none of us can say at the 97th day after conception, that there's not a magic moment or an arbitrary distinction that qualifies somebody for personhood, for, looking at these different types of issues, that these are murky waters. And even if we have very passionate beliefs, and boy, howdy, the internet has some very passionate beliefs.
Yeah.
But that these are, I think, worthwhile conversations to be having, just because this the level of discernment, the responsibility and the obligation to actually think these things through is incredibly important. So we don't necessarily need you to, comply with any particular perspective. And I really like that you're thoughtfully considering these things, and I think in a lot of ways challenging us to do the same. So I really respect and appreciate that.
And definitely look forward to when you call back. I just think we do have other callers to get to, and want to make sure we can get through the rest of the show and not pin it down just to abortion. But
I don't want to hug it. So
but we definitely want to hear from you again and continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for calling.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Take care.
I'll see ya.
Bye. So many issues, but I'm not going to get into them right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot of, kind of black and white and this or that, that we're looking at that I think really misses some important facts. I mean, there is the biological consideration of the incredible number of spontaneous abortions that happen in the natural world and how we can't control for that. And so it would feel very arbitrary to somehow say that now that we have an artificial means to induce that, we suddenly can't because of, and there are a lot of other moral arguments and a lot of other things to look at. And so this is obviously not something that we're going to be able to call, hello, New York Times, this is secular sexuality. We've solved abortion. We've figured it out. These are things that we are going to be wrestling with for a while now.
Yeah.
And I think that wrestling match if we can call it that, is beautiful and valuable and part of what being a human is, part of what being a thinking human is, part of what being a skeptic is, and I think it's part of our responsibility to be having these conversations. So thank you all.
Yes. So we have a little rapid fire set up for us here, where Jamie will read off rapid fire style some questions to Christy and I, and we will do our best.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really valuable training ground.
Wait, do I need to stretch?
Yeah, you're going to need to stretch. You're going to, if you can pop your fingers, something to, there you go. Let
Gotta
people
do one of
know.
these. You gotta do one of these.
One of these?
Oh, I can't.
It has to be with a fist. You have to take a fist, then it's got to go
to the neck. No, I can't quite do the neck.
We're
thing.
getting limber. Because we are in training
Step
mode.
right up for the first. Oh, it has a name.
Yeah, well, no, we're in training mode for next week when we are going to be not saved by the protection of our comfortable studio and the distance of a phone caller. Instead, we will be face to face with all of you lovely people and your lovely questions, and we want to be prepared.
Live.
I would also say to anybody who is not in the Austin area, not able to come and see us, please, if there was ever a great week to have your embarrassing, awkward, very strange,
off the wall
questions answered, this is definitely the opportunity to do it. Please send us an email. We're sex@atheist-community.org. We would love to have the opportunity. I got through it. I got the entire email out without fucking it up. Thank you. Okay. We would love to hear from you and to hear your questions. Please send them in because we are super excited to be able to actually have real conversations face to face with good people. So,
with that said, Jamie.
All right, so I have in my hand a collection of questions from a variety of questioners. Are my question answerers ready?
We're ready.
Answerers ready. Ready to answer these questions. All right, question 1. Are all men bi-curious?
Hey, Christy, you want to answer this one?
I mean, I would say I hope so. But, I would say the level of curiosity... I would say no. I mean, really, it comes down to verbiage. You know, how curious is curious? Do I think that there is a single person on the planet who would never, ever, 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 ever enjoy any aspect of a homosexual experience? No, I sincerely actually don't believe that person exists. However, do I think that every man is even curious about kissing a dude, having sex with a dude, having a romantic relationship with a dude? Perhaps not.
So short answer, probably not.
Probably. I forget how the question was worded.
Are all men bi-curious?
Nah, not really. But
I
also don't think that all men are 1,000% straight either.
You know what? I will agree with you. I don't think any of them are 1,000%.
I don't think anybody is 100% anything.
Rapid, yes.
Shamey. I'm sorry, rapid. My bad.
All right, rapid. Are some women incapable of vaginal orgasm once some straight guy has asked us?
Yes, this is true. Some are.
What? That's terrible.
Yeah, at least
my
through
rapid fire
intercourse.
answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Is swallowing cum really healthy for you?
No, but it's
not
not
in any
necessarily
meaningful
unhealthy
way.
either.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, there might be some like fringe benefits, but it's not changing your life.
There's a website set up around this question that's hilarious. I'll have to.
There are lots of websites set up around that question.
What are your thoughts about different ages of consent in different states and countries?
That is not a rapid question.
Yeah, I mean,
Can we
give us
skip?
the most condensed answer.
In 250 characters, or please don't count them. Just like we were talking about with Peter, discernment is important. There's no magic number. There's nothing that we can say like, aha, that's an adult. These things are hard. It's fine that they're hard, and it's good that we think about them thoughtfully.
Ditto.
Yeah. All right, next rapid fire question. How does one join the kink community in their city?
Go to a munch.
Yeah, just
find your local munch.
Literally
and go to it.
Google, San Diego Austin, New York, Munches. Yeah, that's a great place to start.
Meaning wherever you reside, that city.
Yeah,
plus
if
the word
you
munch.
are in Sweden, do not Google San Diego Munches unless, I mean, you might find some interesting results, but
You can visit.
yeah.
Is there any kink that is not okay?
Your kink is not my kink, but your kink is okay.
As long as your kink's not hurting somebody.
Yeah.
I mean,
If it's safe-
let me walk that right back.
If it's safe and consensual.
Yeah, if it's safe and consensual, you can absolutely hurt people. Just try not to like damage them. You know, if they don't,
Permanently
hurting,
damage.
As long as it
hurting
does not
should be
damage
consensual
anyone. Yeah.
Don't
and it should
permanently
be
damage.
kind. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And average penis length in U.S. ?
5.5.
Ask some straight man. What?
5.5 inches.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah.
What is the your voice cracked there for a second?
It's because I was sitting here thinking like 5.5, and then I'll go ahead and say that's average. Yeah.
Doing the math. All right. What is the average number of partners that men and women have?
Throughout their lifetime?
I think
there a
so.
clarifier?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
just go that way.
Let's say upwards of 100.
Yeah, I think the best numbers I've seen have been closer to like 9 for women and 11 for men, which feels
Just
as far as
9.
Average?
Wait,
terms of-
900 or? Okay,
Yeah.
I was going to say what?
9 as an average. I
Nine
mean,
for
that's,
nine.
these numbers are difficult to track down. These are rapid fire questions. These are very nuanced conversations. However, I would say that these questions usually confuse sex with intercourse, and that's a problem.
That's true. Anyway, continue.
All right. And next, can you reuse a condom?
Don't reuse your condoms.
We have been over
God
this.
damn it.
And next, are orgies a real thing?
Yes.
Yeah, short answer is kinda, yeah.
All right. And next, why aren't gay men part of the polyamory community?
Who says they're not?
Yeah, I mean, there's truth to that.
The
I would
premise
say
of this
that,
question.
I will say that in a lot of ways, gay men are excluded from that community in some ways because they have like their own prototypical community that sort of came before polyamory started to get organized. But these are nuanced things. Yeah, Megan's totally right.
Who says
Gay men are very welcome in the polyamory community. Very much a part of it.
Something to think about.
And the next question. Don't do that. Okay. and the next question. What is the purpose of bukkake?
That is actually one I definitely want to write down and talk to Hector Garcia about when we have him in here to discuss evolutionary psychology and these different constructs. But I can very much see sort of a internal mate competition. I mean, we're getting a little far afield. I think the purpose of it is to enjoy getting off. But why? That's a more complex question.
Next question.
The next question.
I'm going to see
That's
Megan's eyes like giving me the uncomfortable stare.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's Megan's way
like,
of saying
as I'm
pass.
falling asleep, I'm going to see that face.
Yeah. The
As
next
I'm
question.
dying, I'm going to see that face.
What is the right way to choke?
Whatever
Like to choke
brings
your
up
partner?
more
I believe that's what's implied.
lubrication.
I think what we're meaning is, if you are into like some domination play and these different things and you want to choke your partner, don't grab them by the throat because this is how you hurt somebody real bad.
See, but I know who wrote this question, and so I think I'm on the right track.
I don't know who wrote this question. Are you asking if I
No,
wrote
What
no,
is the
I'm
right way
saying
to choke?
I know who wrote this question. I think I'm on the right track.
Oh.
Well, I would just say for anybody watching, be very careful about grabbing your partner by the neck. Can be super dangerous. However, and you should look this up, you should learn a little bit more about it than I'm prepared to offer you in this rapid style format, even though I keep going on and I'm trying to see if I can make this sentence go even longer and longer because I'm getting the look from Jamie.
No,
what I would say is actually look it up. Don't just choke somebody. It can actually be super dangerous, but there are super safe ways to do it, primarily by cutting off the blood flow like under the chin rather than on the throat itself. Look it up.
Last one.
Last one?
Yes.
But
Make it a good one.
Okay. All right.
Pick your favorite.
Why do men have nipples?
Hey, Christy, why do men have nipples? I believe you answered this one.
For kind of a lot of reasons, actually, but the simplest, shortest one is simply that as the human body is developing, it starts off basically defaulting to a female composition. Essentially, we can talk about genetics as this very complicated thing, but it's effectively just a point break system that takes place much later in the development of a fetus than the initial nipple development. Sorry. Too long, didn't read. It's because everybody has nipples, and then eventually some people get boobs.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
All right.
Okay.
And since that's the last question, that was the last question. There was no score.
So, with that, we do have a couple calls to round us out here. Let's start with Kendall in Seattle. Hi, Kendall. You are on the air.
Kendall!
Hello, loves. How are you guys?
We're good.
Good.
How are
Doing great.
you?
Great to hear from you.
Good. I'm doing well. Okay, this is a mouthful. Let me just try and figure out what I'm trying to say and put it into words. Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
So I made this Facebook post that we were all kind of discussing, and Vern was like, "Hey, you should call it into secular sexuality." I was like, "Sure." So essentially, I was on this thread where I was talking to a bunch of people in a group about if you are not in the mood for sex, do you think that it is moral or acceptable to kind of give your body to them and say, okay, I don't want to do this, but I know that you want sex. So that's part of the things that, you need out of a relationship. I'll have sex with you X amount of times a week, month, whatever. Because I see a lot of particularly women
Fulfilling their wifely duties.
Right, they don't have the same high sex drive, and maybe they don't hate sex, but they don't really want to do it in the first place. It was the conversation was about faking orgasms. That's what it was, and so a lot of women were saying, "Well, I usually only fake it when I didn't want to have sex in the first place, and I just want it to be over." And I thought that is so heartbreaking to me.
It is.
And I just thought maybe you guys would have something to weigh in on that.
So, I think there's an important distinction there between not in the mood and don't want to. There is
that's a good point.
Yeah.
There's a very big distinction there where I know I can not be in the mood, but I can just be like, okay, sure. And then there are times where I really just don't want to. And I think it's important to define which one of those times we're talking about.
Right. And I would say probably in this discussion, it was more, I didn't really want to, but they coerced me into it, which
that's what it
to me, I
sounds
just
like. Yeah.
feel that that's not okay in my personal super liberal opinion. I feel like enthusiastic consent is so important that just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, enthusiastic, positive consent is very important.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think that there is space for people who consent to and choose, and I'm going to frame it in that way, who choose to have sex even if they're not necessarily in the mood for it, not necessarily wanting it, in the same way that I might go and see a movie because my girlfriend has a crush on Keanu Reeves and she really wants to see some bullshit sci-fi that's only playing at the Dollar Theater, and I might go along with that. And I might have a good goddamn time, even if it's a bad movie. It's good company. It's a fun experience. And so there is perhaps, in rare occasions, a certain amount of like grin and bear itness. But when we're talking about sex, we want to make sure that that is not the mainstay, because you can't build a relationship on that. You can't build a relationship on only seeing movies that you don't want to see, on only spending time with their family that you can't stand, of only doing the things that they want to do. And there's a huge difference between, well, this is something that you were really excited about, and I'll go along with it, and I'll do that for you. I'm good giving and game in the sense that I'm game for something that you're excited about, even if it's not necessarily what I'm interested in or what I'm interested in right now. But that's a far cry from feeling obligated to have sex with somebody and then to lie about the sexual experience that you're actually having.
Yeah.
Right, and it kind of comes down to, and I don't know, maybe this is extreme, but for one, bodily autonomy. Do you still have bodily autonomy if you're saying, okay, whatever, do what you're going to do, and I'll just be here even though I don't want to? And are you really giving consent if you don't want to do something? I mean, it's kind of complicated, right?
And if you have to mentally go to a completely different place to be able to
Yeah, there's a huge difference between, if you don't spend Christmas at my parents', I'm going to divorce you or break up with you or whatever, versus, okay, yeah, I get it. It's your dad's birthday. We'll go and we'll go to the barbecue and I'll hang out and play nice for a couple of hours. And I know I'm using these sort of abstract metaphors and different things, but yeah, I definitely think that there is a difference between being coerced into something that you are not willing to do versus being willing to say, yeah, okay, I'll do this for you. That's very, very different. And nobody should ever have sex that they are feeling forced into, that they're feeling pressured into, that they're feeling manipulated into, that, if no is not an acceptable answer, then you didn't really ask a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of sex is categorically wrong. Nobody should ever be forcing anybody else, coercing anybody else into having sex with them. Does that categorically mean that nobody can ever have sex when they're not particularly feeling into it or up for it? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. But because our culture has been so far in one particular direction, anything that even looks like potentially going along to get along or just sort of being open or game for something that you're not necessarily excited about starts to look and feel very rapey. And I think that that's something we need to be very sensitive to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to say too is I know a lot of people, again, particularly women, who don't think that they have been raped, but then they describe situations that are rape.
Yeah.
So, including being manipulated or gaslighted or, coerced into sex that they don't want to have. And so really it turns into this huge gray area where at what point is it acceptable and what point is it rapey?
Yeah. And I think that gray area gets a whole lot less gray when people are having open and informed conversations about what consent actually looks like, about what rape actually is. Because if those women fully felt like they had autonomy and the right to choose over their bodies, then that gray area would evaporate very quickly.
And I would also say that if you fear any kind of negative consequence for saying no, that is not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, whether that's, whether that's physical violence or whether that's just a pissy attitude, that's still a negative consequence for saying no, and no woman should face a negative consequence for saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I'm just haven't been in these kinds of relationships, but to me, I can't imagine not being in the mood and then agreeing to go ahead and have sex with a partner if I didn't fear a negative consequence. And like you said, it usually is just a pissy mood or and this is another aspect of it too, is if your partner feels undesirable because you won't have sex with them, is it then your responsibility as a partner to make them feel desirable in that way,
Right.
Yeah, it's a very human question, but I would say strictly that nobody is ever responsible for anybody else's self-identity, for the way anybody else feels. We are not responsible for anything outside of our control. And the reality is we cannot control the way other people look and feel and, perceive anything. So,
Behave.
yeah. So it's very frustrating to me that this is still a question, but I recognize that it is in a lot of ways because I know I've been in that position. I know I've been in situations where I've had partners where if we didn't have sex, they would somehow think that meant something about how I felt about them, or think something about themselves, or think something about me and my commitment to the relationship, or all of these different things. And people are moody and they're allowed to have those moods. They're allowed to love you and not want to have sex with you today or at all.
Or,
and
anytime.
Letting everyone know that that's okay, that that's acceptable is a very difficult and tricky thing in our culture.
And to remember that enthusiastic consent is also important.
It's enthusiastic. I think another thing that can help inform and make the gray area less gray is a deeper understanding between the two people. So if two people have a relationship that and an understanding of each other, like over 10 years of dating and knowing each other very, very well, then there's at that point that those two individuals have a better read on, what another person is willing to do and at what point they would be coercing the other person. And at that point, they're better able to understand and not, force things or feel coercive at all, right?
So really what you're saying is communication.
Yeah, is communication in large part.
Which, as to just wrap it all back, open and honest communication assumes and expects a opportunity to say or give any answer. You can't ask a question if you're already anticipating the answer or if you're going to punish a particular answer. And so nobody should be having any kind of sex with anybody else if they can't openly and honestly talk about what they want and what they don't want, whether it is, getting into the far-flung and the kinky and the everything, or whether it's even talking about whether or not to have it or to do it. Yeah. And if you can't even tell somebody, hey, when you put your arm around me when I'm trying to sleep, it feels nice, but I can't ever actually fall asleep, then that's somebody that you shouldn't be spending the night with if you can't tell them that openly.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are a lot of shoulds and a lot of rights and wrongs. I know that these things in the moment feel very nuanced and personal and complicated, but I think we should all be striving for relationships that are open and honest and communicative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you guys have another minute.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So another aspect of the whole topic too is if two people get into a relationship and in the beginning, let's say you're going through your honeymoon phase and fucking like rabbits all the time, and then after time, one of your partners doesn't want to have sex as much. Do you think that it's acceptable or valid for someone to be upset that there's not sex happening anymore when that was kind of the foundation of the relationship, or going into that relationship, that person was under the impression that there would be having more sex in that relationship?
So
can I jump in there?
Yeah.
I can already hear y'all. I would say absolutely, you have every right to be very upset. You can be as upset as you want to be. You are not to be held accountable for having that emotion. However, if you being upset means that you are stomping around, it means that you are breaking things, that you are being an asshole, that you are saying rude things, that you are punishing somebody, your words and your actions, you're very much responsible for. So you can be upset. That's your right. You can feel whatever you want to feel, think whatever you want to think.
Keep it on the inside.
And you can even express it
answer.
in a way
words.
that's kind and gentle and,
So what I will say is
Conversation.
what's key is not just is communication again, and also having the self-awareness and maturity to know, you know what, I'm feeling upset. Why am I feeling upset? It's because I thought we were going to always be bunnies of the sexual variety, and now we're not. The best case scenario, given those set of circumstances, is for the person who is feeling upset to communicate how they feel to their partner.
Well, and really, if we zoom out
again,
to a sociological
when I say communicate,
level,
I don't mean through stomping and
right,
shouting.
and being a dick.
You mean in conversation?
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Gentle, loving
Using
conversation.
your big boy words.
As we zoom out, the best case scenario is that people have a language and an opportunity to not be stuck on a specific type of relationship that isn't right for them. That they know going into a relationship that there's always opportunity for flexibility, for different models of a relationship. By no means am I saying that everybody listening needs to go out and become polyamorous or jump into an open relationship or these types of things. I do, however, think that our concept of how a relationship is supposed to work, that it's supposed to start, boy meets girl. Sometimes we'll put an asterisk on that and perhaps include other people, but not often, but people meet, they have a couple of flirty dates, they have a ton of sex, they move in together, they have a ton more sex, then they settle into a rut, then they get married, then they have kids. That model is fine, but it is not the only one. And people don't feel like they have a choice, and so they find themselves making decisions that they never really consented to or were enthusiastic about. And so they get stuck in this situation that is never right for them, and they don't know why, and they are mad at their partner when, I don't want to say they should be mad at themselves because they didn't even really feel like they had a choice either. Our society didn't give them one.
The expectation that the status quo will not change.
Yeah.
Which is unrealistic.
Yeah, and
Definitely,
if people have an opportunity to know what they're getting into and to know what they want and know that there are multiple options. I mean, I'm almost talking about some sci-fi utopia much down the road, but I sincerely believe that with the the advent of marriage equality and these different changes that we've made, that we are headed in the right direction, but that our opportunities in relationship are still so stymied and so limited by the models that we see, by the expectations, by our social and legal institutions. I mean, we don't have time for me to do an entire another episode on this, but I think that these are really important things.
Yeah, very.
Thank you guys, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your show, and I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you giving us a call.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Are we too late in the show to address this question they've just brought up in the chat?
Is it a
Can we hit it super
It's relatively
quick?
short. It's if you pay for it, are sex workers obligated to fake it and act well? And I would say
No.
No. In the same way that if you go to a restaurant and you pay the bill, a waiter is not obligated to give you good service. Right? They're not obligated to smile or say howdy, y'all. But it is
It's part of the social contract.
It's a part of the social contract, and it's
expectation,
part of the norm, right?
but
it's not
They
required.
still have the Well, they still have the right to opt out.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be clear, it's sort of like if you don't like the job you're doing, should you have to fake it?
So basically, we're saying sex workers can say no too.
Yeah, sex workers have consent.
So
Yes.
with that,
I want to be. I know we've joked about some different things, and we've maybe highlighted some problems through hyperbole. But I don't want to walk away without saying that sex workers and wives I don't know why I feel like I live in a society where I'm obligated to say both of this.
Of both of those.
But everybody, including those two types of people, who are often the same type, by the way, have every right. Everybody has the right to consent to their own sexual experiences.
Yes.
Yes. And just before we head out, I want to say a comment in the chat was after you consent to the job and then want to pull out, you have the right to give them a refund and stop the job.
Yes. Yeah. Although, yes, that's very visual.
Yes, it is. So with that visual, hey, Christy, you want to take us out?
Yeah, man. Okay. So we really got in there tonight.
We did.
Yeah. Goodness.
We're just keeping with the visuals.
Right.
We are. Yeah.
We got in there, and then we thought, let's ease it
And there was
back
some
out,
cum,
and then we got right back in there.
We got in there. We dealt with the hard issues.
And just really pounded out some of these complicated problems.
Yes. And
goodness.
And we did it rapid fire as well.
We did. Yeah. So whether you're doing it rapid fire, whether you are
in it for the
doing
long
it in
haul.
2018 or 2019, whether it is, oh goodness, I don't even know where else to go with this. I think it's just time to thank everybody for joining us and to say we would very much like for them to all go out, give themselves a big ol' orgasm, or better yet, give somebody else one.
Bye.
Hey, someone in the chat just said,